Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 3859 AN. Today's date is March 12th, 2026, and the title of the episode is Trump Goes After Hostile Oil Nations, Central Bank Push Biden Fake Economy, Tariff System Works. Central banks cause inflation, and that is a threat to you, your savings account, your retirement. Ask yourself an honest question. Does your dollar go as far as it did 10 years ago, 5 years ago, or even last year? So what does the next decade look like for you and your savings? If your portfolio lacks exposure to gold, one of history's most reliable economic hedges, it's time to rethink your strategy. Gold has kept up with inflation and in many periods outpaced it. My friends at Noble Gold Investment specialize in helping people protect their wealth with physical gold and silver. Whether you're rolling over an IRA or making a direct purchase, their team walks you through the entire process and makes it very simple. No pressure, just education and experience. Right now, all new qualified accounts will receive a free 1/10 of an ounce American Gold Eagle as a thank you. Visit X22Gold.com. That is X22Gold.com, and discover how easy it is to protect your financial future. Or just click the link in the description. And remember, past performance may not be indicative of future results. Investing in precious metals involves risk. Consult your financial advisor before making investment decisions. Let's get right into the economic collapse financial news. Now, the deep state, the corrupt politicians, the private central bank, the World Economic Forum. To make their green new scam work, they need the control of energy. And that is what Trump is doing out in the Middle East right now. Because again, who is truly in control of the energy? And there are hostile individuals that are trying to actually keep the oil price up very, very high. And we could see Trump now is battling these people. Because you have to remember, if the deep state, the central bankers are trying to introduce the Green New scam, they need to do what? They need to control the oil. They've been controlling the oil for a very long time. Trump now is removing that control from them. And you could see with everything that Trump is doing right now, he's building the new parallel economic system, and the control of energy is key. Yes, he built the parallel economic system in this country, which is the tariff system. Now you can see that he is now preparing and getting ready to control the energy across the globe. And this needs to be done because, once again, if we're going to move forward with the golden age, we can't have other entities controlling the energy. And this is exactly what Trump is doing. And if you really look at it, you could see that everything that he's putting into place is actually working. Yes, it does take time for these things to work. Remember, we've been in a central bank illusionary economy since 1971. Actually, if you go back to 1913, that's when it was established. We became the real reserve currency right after World War II. And then 1971, we went full fiat, which means the central bank system pretty much took over everything. And then in 2008, 2009, during that financial crisis, they took over the interest rates, they took over the stock market, they took over, I think, everything that we see today. And basically, they've been running a huge scam ever since. And when you really look at it, you could see that every step of the way, they're trying to battle Trump and try to stop Trump every step of the way, but it's not working. They're losing ground, and it's getting worse and worse for them as time goes on. And this is why they have introduced Biden/Obama's economy. Now, remember, when Trump came into office, what did Biden say? I'm handing Trump the best economy ever, strong economy. Now we have the Democrats repeating this message, and you have to ask yourself a simple question. Why are they doing this? Because once again, we know the job numbers are fake. We know inflation is fake. We know the GDP numbers that they were creating were fake. All the calculations are pretty much manipulated. That's why they go back and they continually revise the numbers. And now with the job numbers, that's exactly what they're doing. Think about what they did. They created millions of fake jobs, and now they're going back and revising the numbers, making it look like Trump is the one who created the fake economic system. Same thing with inflation. People are still feeling the repercussions of the inflation that Biden/Obama have caused since that time, because you have to remember, it's cumulative. Just because he brought it back to 3% doesn't mean it was at 3%. I'm talking about Biden. It means all that inflation that he's created stays. Even when Trump brings it down to 3, to 2, to 1, it makes no difference because that inflation stays. The only way to get rid of it, number one, is to pay it back, or you can mitigate it by lowering energy costs. You can mitigate it by removing the taxes. You can mitigate it by bringing manufacturers back to this country. Can you completely and utterly get rid of it? Absolutely not. And I do believe Trump right now is in the process of mitigating it. And yes, we're involved in a mission out in Iran because Trump is truly battling the oil tycoons, those people that have been in control of the system for a very long time, and he's taking that control away from them. And this is why he's releasing the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. Remember, Biden released it during his time in the White House, but this was to manage the price of oil because he was pushing the Green New scam. Trump is releasing the Strategic Petroleum Reserve because we are now battling those hostile forces that are trying to push oil prices up. It's very, very different. Plus, at the same time, what is Trump doing? He has made the country energy independent. He's allowing more and more oil companies to drill like we've never seen before, which is going to counter everything that they're doing right now. And when you look at the whole Green New scam, you can see that it would be a complete and utter disaster if we went to wind and solar. Number one, all you got to do is look at California and look at Germany. You could see it's a disaster there. They're waking up and they're figuring that out. Companies are waking up. They're figuring it out. The people in the country of Germany, the people out in California, they're waking up. They're figuring it out. And when you look at Indiana, they had a whole solar farm in Wheatfield, Indiana, and it was destroyed by severe storms, including tornadoes. It moved through the area and just decimated the solar panels. So think about this. If we were dependent on solar right now, especially in that area, the entire area would have been destroyed. It's not like, oh, we have a couple of down wires, we got to put the wires back up, or something else occurred. The entire area was destroyed, which means there's no energy whatsoever. Yes, the batteries might have some life in them, but that's not going to last too long. And once again, you could see that this is not a good way to go. But you have to remember, the deep state, the central bankers, they really didn't care about if you had energy or not, because they weren't going to be using the same exact energy. They were going to be using oil. They were going to be using nuclear. They were going to be using everything else. And you, the serf, were going to use wind and solar. And now people are starting to really wake up and see that this is not a good way to go. Plus, with solar and wind, we could not have manufacturing in this country, just like Germany's figuring that one out, because they went completely solar, wind, mostly wind. They got rid of their coal-fired plants. They got rid of their nuclear power plants. And they realized, hey, this was the wrong direction. Why were we doing this? This makes no sense whatsoever. While we were doing that, China was ramping up on nuclear, on coal, and everything else. So I think Mertz started to realize this when he took a trip down to China, and he started to wake up and smell the coffee, and he started to realize, hey, we're heading in the wrong direction. He even mentioned it at the World Economic Forum that we're going in a completely wrong direction. And now you could see with Ursula von der Leyen, they have to backtrack. There's no choice but to backtrack because the entire world is not moving in the direction they thought it was going to move. Because again, as the United States builds up its manufacturing plants, Europe is going to be left in the dust. See, the only way this was going to work was to have Europe and the United States, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, all on the same page. If you go back to, let's say, COVID, for example, yes, Australia, New Zealand, the EU nations, UK, they could all push the vaccine passport. But if the United States is not on board and the United States heads in a different direction, how is that going to look? The same thing's happening right now. That's why they're backtracking, because again, the United States is not heading in the direction that they're heading. And the United States would outpace them as time went on. And the people of Europe would start to realize, wait a minute, they're using oil, they're using nuclear power plants, or even compact fusion reactors. They're not using wind, they're not using solar, and they have an incredible manufacturing force. And we're sitting here with wind and solar, and we barely have power, and the manufacturing plants are leaving our countries. That's what they would have experienced. And now you could see everything is about to change. And yes, Trump is now using the Strategic Petroleum Reserve to counter the entities that are trying to push the oil prices up because of this Iran mission. And again, Congress has not declared it a war, so it's a mission. But again, who's Trump really battling? Is he battling Iran? Or is he battling those people in London and other entities? Really think about that for a second. Central banks cause inflation, and that is a threat to you, your savings account, your retirement. Ask yourself an honest question. Does your dollar go as far as it did 10 years ago, 5 years ago, or even last year? So what does the next decade look like for you and your savings? If your portfolio lacks exposure to gold, one of history's most reliable economic hedges, it's time to rethink your strategy. Gold has kept up with inflation and in many periods outpaced it. My friends at Noble Gold Investment specialize in helping people protect their wealth with physical gold and silver. Whether you're rolling over an IRA or making a direct purchase, their team walks you through the entire process and makes it very simple. No pressure, just education and experience. Right now, all new qualified accounts will receive a free 1/10 of an ounce American Gold Eagle as a thank you. Visit X22Gold.com. That is X22Gold.com and discover how easy it is to protect your financial future. Or just click the link in the description. And remember, past performance may not be indicative of future results. Investing in precious metals involves risk. Consult your financial advisor before making investment decisions. But Peter Sayong, PhD, put this out and said, the Strategic Petroleum Reserves was built so we'd never be caught flat-footed by a Middle East war. It took 30 years to fill. Then Biden drained it by half to buy an election. And that's exactly what he did, because we have to remember they were pushing the whole Green New scam, which was driving energy costs sky high, and he had to mitigate the problem. And Trump is not trying to mitigate the problem. We have the ability to pump oil like crazy. What he's doing, he's using it to counter what the deep state, what the central bankers, what these entities are trying to do. Trump, he put this out on Truth. He said the following: the United States is the largest oil producer in the world by far. So when oil prices go up, we make a lot of money. But of far greater interest and importance to me as president is stopping an evil empire, Iran, from having nuclear weapons and destroying the Middle East and indeed the world. I won't ever let that happen. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Letting you know, yes, oil prices are going to go up a little bit. And again, I think they went up way too much. I think basically certain individuals, maybe within the stations or oil producers, whoever they are, they were gouging the prices because, again, this was oil that was already paid for. There was no reason for the prices to go up as of yet. Plus, if we're producing the oil and we don't even get the oil from Iran, again, there was no reason for oil to go up. And Trump now is countering all of this by releasing the Strategic Petroleum Reserves. And U.S. Energy Secretary Wright says the release of the Strategic Petroleum Reserves is partly to ensure near-term oil supplies to Asia. Yes, to counter everything the deep state central bankers are trying to do. And once again, we're prepared and ready to unlock all this oil. Plus, since we have this mission going on in Iran, Trump can make the oil part of it a national security issue and then issue directives to actually drill in places where the deep state players, the central bankers, tried to stop us. Bull Theory put this out and said, Trump to use war powers to unlock 30 billion barrels of oil trapped off the California coast. He's invoking a Cold War law to bypass state rules so a Texas company can restart a massive oil field that has been shut down for years. California is sitting on a massive oil deposit that could produce 50,000 barrels a day, enough to secure the U.S. oil supply. So, yes, there's a lot of oil, and the reliable estimates peg the remaining recoverable oil at around 190 million barrels, which represents about 80% of untapped Pacific reserves. So, basically, yes, this could be used. Plus, Trump can use the national security threat against other states that have stopped oil producers, and Trump can now reverse all of this and have them start pumping oil once again, which means this would add to the oil supply here in this country. So it looks like everything is about to change. And Trump now, by using what's going on in Iran, he's bypassing everything the states have put into place, everything the central bankers have put into place, the green people have put in place. And now he's overriding this, bypassing pretty much everything. So we're going to see a lot of oil produced in this country. And it's going to continue on because, again, he's going to say it's a national security threat of what is going on in the Middle East. Now, think about it. As we move towards the midterms, we know that the deep state, the Ds, they're going to have to try to counter everything that Trump is doing. And once again, they're trying to make the case that Biden slash Obama handed off a very strong economy to Trump. They knew it was fake. They knew they manipulated the job numbers. They knew they manipulated the inflation numbers because all the calculations are manipulated. They know they manipulated the GDP numbers. But now they're building that narrative because they believe that this is the right time. They did this during COVID, during the 2020 presidential elections, where they tried to actually destroy the economy. Because, again, they knew the economy was doing very well. They knew the economy was the number one issue. And now they're using the same exact tactic at this point in time. But you have to remember, Trump has a different weapon this time. He has the parallel economic system. He has tariffs. But the Vigilant Fox put this out and said, James Carville rewrites history and says that Biden economy was a golden age. In August of 2024, The Economist said that the U.S. economy was the envy of the world. Jamie Dimon said it was the strongest economy he had ever seen. It's turning into a catastrophe. They keep revising the job numbers. According to Carville, the Biden economy was the envy of the world just 3 months before the election. On election day, the American people said, my wallet's hurt, which is exactly why they didn't vote for Kamala Harris. And now they're trying to make and convince everyone that, hey, if you go back to Biden's time, the economy was actually fantastic. But again, it never was. And who was assisting the Biden/Obama administration at the time? It was the Federal Reserve. They were completely and utterly on board with all of this. And you could see the Federal Reserve, what did they do? They brought the interest rates high, then they dropped them right before the election, even though we were nowhere near the target inflation number. We're way higher than it has ever been. But they decided to help Biden out. Now, when Trump brings the inflation number to 2.5 to 2.3 to 2, they say there's a problem because all of a sudden inflation might shoot up. Well, when it reached 3.5% under Biden and it was at 9, they weren't worried about inflation shooting up during that period of time. That should tell you everything you need to know. And think about it. Inflation right now is around 2.4% if you use the Fed calculation. So basically, there's no tariff-driven inflation. There's no spike. There's absolutely nothing. So once again, everything that the Fed has been talking about is turned out to be fake, phony, and false. Peter Sion, PhD, put this out and said, Jerome Powell continues punishing Trump and American workers for Joe Biden's inflation. Because what would happen if the Fed should lower the rates to 2% to 1%? The economy would take off, and everything the Fed has been talking about would turn out to be fake, phony, and false, just like everything else they said. And once again, they are the problem. But think about it. What Trump is doing right now, he's putting all the pieces together. He's creating manufacturing jobs. He's going to different states and saying, listen, we're going to be creating jobs here like crazy. We're bringing industry back. And if you look at Ohio, he's doing exactly that there. He put this out on Truth. He said the following: I'm on my way to the great state of Ohio, which I loved, and I won big 3 times. So to visit Thermo Fisher, a pharmaceutical manufacturing company that is investing $2 billion in U.S. manufacturing and bringing great paying jobs back to Ohio from overseas. Thermo Fisher is doing this because of my America First trade policies, most specifically tariffs, which charge other countries to access to our markets while protecting our import industry and strengthening our supply chains. Thanks to my most favored nation deals, prescription drugs prices are coming down by a lot, and I've asked Congress to codify these policies. After that, I will be heading to the wonderful Commonwealth of Kentucky. See you soon. And that's what he's doing right now. He's bringing all these manufacturers back to the United States. And as the manufacturing plants are built, it's going to create a lot of construction jobs. As he lowers the interest rates, it's going to allow them to build these places cheaply with cheap interest rates. And once these manufacturing plants are built, you're going to see a lot of jobs all of a sudden come into existence. And now with the numbers being revised, this is going to be actually pretty good. I know the deep state players and the Biden administration and the rest have been trying to use this to their advantage. But actually what's going to happen is that as the numbers are revised and the job numbers are brought down, and Trump starts to build, and I'm talking about because of all these people investing in the country and all these manufacturers coming back to this country, as the plants start the construction, all of a sudden from these low job numbers, you're going to see the job numbers start to shoot up. You're going to see a lot of construction jobs. Once the plants are completed, you're going to see other jobs come online. And remember, when you're building a plant, you need tar, you need copper piping, you need plumbers, you need electrical, you need copper, you need furniture, you need decoration, you need pretty much everything. And you're going to see these businesses really start to boom. So yes, they can play with the numbers. They can try to convince you at this point in time that Trump is losing jobs. But all of a sudden, you're going to start to see it switch around. Plus, he's not losing jobs. These are all fake jobs that they're now revising and actually showing you that Biden has never created any of these jobs. Because again, it's going backwards in time. And it's showing you that the jobs are absolutely fake. And it's just like the inflation. They basically took the inflation calculation and said, hey, we're only going to count the inflation for this point in time. We don't care about the other 50-something years because that just doesn't count. But it does count, because if we're truly going to go back to 2% inflation, then prices would be 2% above 1971 prices when we came off the gold standard. Are they? No, they're not. That should tell you everything you need to know. Soon will they? Absolutely. And you can see the Trump administration, they're launching a process to replace tariffs that was struck down by the Supreme Court. And yes, they're going to be using other tariff statutes where they can use this, or statute laws, that they can use this to counter everything the Supreme Court has done. Actually, the Supreme Court, they've given Trump a path, and he's going to follow this path because he was told through the Supreme Court, through the dissent, that he can use other laws to implement tariffs because they're time-tested, they were passed by Congress, and there's no judge that can actually stop them. So even though they're trying to force Trump to pay it all back, if Trump raises the tariffs to 10 to 15% and is charging these people 10 to 15%, he could just say, listen, okay, you know what I'll do? This month I'll skip, and that's your payback. Because he's already collected that money. So now, if he skips a month saying, okay, you don't owe this amount, we'll just skip it. He could do that. Not a real big deal, is it? So in the end, no matter what the deep state, what the central bankers tried to do, it is completely and utterly failed. And what's very interesting is that companies now are starting to see the benefits of the tariffs. Remember, the tariffs benefit the people. The tariffs benefit the manufacturers in this country. The tariffs benefit the country as a whole. Tariffs do not benefit the manufacturers that are in other countries. The tariffs do not benefit other countries. The tariffs do not benefit the central bank. And that's what they hate. But you could see that these tariffs are totally working for manufacturers in this country. Eric Doherty put this out and said, an incredible tariff win for President Trump. An aluminum plant in South Carolina just surged jobs for Americans that pay $125,000 per year. Century Aluminum CEO Jesse Gary, the tariffs are working. The plan is going back to 100% manufacturing capacity. And again, this is what these are created to do. They're created to keep the jobs in this country. They're created to force manufacturers from leaving this country, or if manufacturers are out of this country, they're being forced back to this country. And it's creating jobs like we've never seen before in this country. That's what the tariffs are for. Yes, it also brings in currency from the outside to fund the government. Because again, the central bank system is a debt-based system. The central bank system takes from you. Trump is giving to you. It's the opposite of what you've been experiencing for most likely your entire life. Most likely everyone's entire life. I mean, if people, I don't think anyone's alive before 1913. But once again, those people that have been living, those people that have been working their entire lives, they've been trapped in the central bank illusionary economy. Trump is bringing us back to a time before that. And most of the people of this country have never, ever seen it or experienced it. And now the people are going to experience it. And you can see that all the pieces now are coming together, and it's getting better and better. And you're going to see it take off. Because once Trump has control of the energy via the Middle East, and you have to remember what's going on there, the entities out in the Middle East, they always want a war scenario. They want that area to be unstable because that's where they make their money. That's how they can control what's going through the Strait of Hormuz. That's how they control everything. So Trump now is removing all of that. And once he does, and he gains control of the Strait of Hormuz and has peace in the region, all of a sudden, everything changes. And you're going to see oil drop like a rock. And you're going to see everything change because remember, cheaper the energy, that mitigates the inflation, that helps the manufacturers, that helps the world. And I do believe this is what Trump is doing. He's about to change everything for the better. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.